Very interested in cryptographic currencies. I think the ability to be able to store value without having somebody be able to inflate it away. I think having an immutable ledger where we can prove that somebody had an idea and they placed it here and now everybody can see that over a long period of time. But the jump in my mind to a truly digital world, or one in which we're describing it as a digital commonwealth, is a really far one for me. But I like the fact that you've put a name to it, because it seems to me that you can start building around something once a name is there. What did you mean by this concept of digital commonwealth?
Yeah, I want to say that of all the stuff we've talked about, I would say digital commonwealth, definitely many others have talked about it before me. I'm thinking very specifically of some of the early efforts of alternative cryptocurrencies to Bitcoin. So things that have like voting systems where you can change the state of the blockchain. What I see those as are basically proto governments, where what your government of is just the chain, because that's the only thing. But I don't think it's crazy to think that eventually having a government that's on chain where people can vote and they can pass proposals and they can do these various things eventually begins to spill into the rest of life. And actually, I'm very interested to see what happens with cryptocurrency, particularly as the prices continue to rise, because I think culturally it'll be a big shift. The last a really big culture change that also happened in my lifetime was that nerds became cool. So when I was growing up, no one knew what Lord of the Rings was. Right? Like Lord of the Rings, it was before Lord of the Rings was a movie, right? Nobody knew what Lord of the Rings was, right? And and that began to change because all these big Hollywood style movies came out, but also like Game of Thrones, like what most popular TV show, like Game of Thrones, right? Game of Thrones is crazy nerdy fantasy if you think about it from the perspective of 1991, right? And what changed? The nerds got rich. Computers made all the nerds rich. So what does everyone like now? They like what nerds liked, right? Because that's where all the money was. So nerd culture became American culture, right, broadly. And I think that has had disadvantages and advantages. So that's led to some maybe not so great cultural changes and some really great cultural changes. And I wonder if with cryptocurrencies, the kind of libertarian ethos that, the people who are getting rich right now in cryptocurrencies, yes, now finally it's like big companies and stuff like that. But for a long time, it's been like kind of like weird, like political weirdos. And I don't mean that in a really negative way, but also like sex workers and like people like who think about the people who are accumulating cryptocurrencies. They are not like the people who have gotten rich in other land rushes, right?
Well, because the only way that you could do it would be to be, going against the orthodoxy, right? So in order to even get into Bitcoin, and I remember I was talking about it back in 2012. My buddy Rob Long and I were actually invited to go give talks, and we were like a novelty carnival act when we would go to explain this thing, and people would be like, yes, we understand that you're saying this thing exists, but why would anyone ever want it? And now fast forward, 10 years, not even 10 years. And now you see that people, they not only see why you would want it, but the outliers that you were saying before have now become the kind of cool people. And man, your point about the nerd culture, the nerds got rich. I mean, it really goes along with Rene Girard's kind of mimetic desire idea. Like, right? I don't know what to want, so I'm going to look at what other people want that are higher up in the status hierarchy than me, and then I'm going to want those same things. That's totally true about nerd culture. And I really hope it's true about libertarian culture.
Yeah, like I said, there may be, so depending on where you are, right, there may be advantages or disadvantages, but I do think that there's the potential for that happening. Like, and maybe it's time that we have weird, maybe it's time that we had like really weird risk takers who are really anti-censorship and sex workers with huge OnlyFans, and those are the people making like all the money right now, because they've been accepting Ethereum or whatever for the past couple of years, and I like it's different. At least it's different, right? Like at least it's not Wall Street is making a killing on this stuff. It's like weird other people, and hopefully it could help energize the culture in certain ways. It could help energize.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think one of the ways that could be really important is changing the way that people build relationships with their employers. Like, we have gone through this evolution where the way that we built it was we built factories, and then people had to have this very hierarchical structure, and people now come into work, and the way you get a full day of work is that you come in for 8 hours a day. Well, I guess, COVID kind of changed all that. But I'm really hoping that the bureaucratic structure that I think a lot of people, one of the reasons they watch entertainment, to go back to the beginning of our conversation, is because they're so whittled away with boring, mundane things. And we don't realize just how taxing it is to be bored all day, so that when we come home, the relaxation from the boredom is to get on a ski slope where all of the runs have already been run down. You just get on one and ride it all the way down. So I hope crypto allows people to break out of the mundaneness of life and allows them to charge for their services in some different capacity than what we're doing now.
In regards to this very interesting point about people coming and watching TV, right? Coming home and watching TV, which I think is almost like a near universal human experience, at least in like first world countries. That I've shifted my perspective of that, because I used to think, oh, people do it, because it's easy or something like that. And it is, like, that's certainly true. But now when I'm thinking about it through the lens of like the overfitted brain hypothesis, it's like, well, if you have a very boring the job that's day to day the same, what are you going to do? You're going to seek out artificial dreams. Because by the way, humans have a dream drive. If you prevent people from dreaming, they will dream more the next night, right? So it's called REM rebound. So we literally have, it's like hunger, right? You have base biological drives. One of them is the need for sleep. Is the need for sleep, and within that need for sleep, there's also the need for dreams. Specifically dreams. You will dream more the next night if you were just dream deprived from the dreaming part of sleep. And that if you think about people coming and like watching TV after they kind of trudge home, from like they'll say incredibly boring same 9-to-5 job. Maybe what they're doing is they're like, please, artificial dream, help me. Help me, right? And then we're like, well, here's a bunch of terrible TV, and that's not helpful. And again, maybe that's part of defining this lower aspect of the aesthetic spectrum. I mean, one of my goals with the Revelations was to give people something that was as unlike that. It still has to function. It has to function as a novel. It has to function as a murder mystery. It has to function as something that is readable and page turning and interesting, right? So you have to spend a lot of time, on just the architecture of that. But I wanted to give something that people had just never really even had before, and that felt novel.
Thanks for checking out this podcast short. If you like this interview, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button and hit that bell so you always get notified about this podcast. And if you're really interested in conversations like this, you may want to consider joining the Articulate Ventures Network. To find out more, go to network.articulate.ventures.